So, um, this text is called the Eihei Kosu Hotsugamon. It is Dogen's vow. It's Dogen's vow about how he was going to live and practice. And it also has sort of promises in it. So it's kind of, yes, louder?
There might be a few people that don't know who Dogen is.
Oh, thank you.
Know, but...
Okay, so I'm part of the Shodo Zen school, which you tend to but are not absolutely part of, I think. And the founder of our school is a man named Eihei Dogen, who was born in Japan in the year 1200. He entered a monastery at age 12 after his parents had died, and became dissatisfied, traveled to China looking for the true teaching, came back to Japan, was a bit of a renegade. He began writing before he was able to establish his own monastery, and he wound up being one of the most respected teachers in Japanese Buddhism, at least. Philosophers around the world respect him. Eihei is the name of the temple, and it's customary to call the teacher by the name of their temple, or it was at that time. So he named his temple, it means eternal peace, and he named it after the era in which Buddhism came to China. So let's read the thing first, and then I'll say more. So, we vow with all beings from this life on throughout countless lives to hear the true Dharma, that upon hearing it, no doubt will arise in us, nor will we lack in faith, that upon meeting it, we shall renounce worldly affairs and maintain the Buddha Dharma, and that in doing so, the great earth and all living beings together will attain the Buddha way. Although our past evil karma has greatly accumulated, indeed being the cause and condition of obstacles in practicing the way, may all Buddhas and ancestors who have attained the Buddha way be compassionate to us and free us from karmic effects, allowing us to practice the way without hindrance. May they share with us their compassion, which fills the boundless universe with the virtue of their enlightenment and teachings. Buddhas and ancestors of old were as we in the future shall be Buddhas and ancestors. Revering Buddhas and ancestors, we are one Buddha and one ancestor. Awakening Bodhi mind, we are one Bodhi mind. Because they extend their compassion to us freely and without limit, we are able to attain Buddhahood and let go of the attainment. Therefore, the Chan Master Lungya said, "Those who in past lives were not enlightened will now be enlightened. In this life, save the body, which is the fruit of many lives. Before Buddhas were enlightened, they were the same as we. Enlightened people of today are exactly as those of old. Quietly explore the farthest reaches of these causes and conditions, as this practice is the exact transmission of a verified Buddha. Confessing and repenting in this way, one never fails to receive profound help from all Buddhas and ancestors. By revealing and disclosing our lack of faith and practice before the Buddha, we melt away the root of transgressions by the power of our confession and repentance. This is the pure and simple color of true practice, of the true mind of faith, of the true body of faith. So there is a tradition, or was in Buddhism, held by pretty much Buddhists everywhere, that there would be 3 ages in Buddhism. The first was the age of true teaching, or true law, during which, well, at the beginning of it, the Buddha lived on earth. And if you read the stories of him and students and things, people would, they'd say, become enlightened just like that. He would say a word to them and they would wake up. They would drop away their illusions and they would follow him. The second age is the age of the copied law, an age in which there was still practice, but there was not enlightenment. And the third age, known in Japanese as Mappo, is the age of the latter law, the degeneration of the law, the age of decline. So Dogen and his contemporaries thought that they were in the early part of the age of decline, in which there couldn't be practice, even. There could still be teaching. And Dogen defied this. There were 2 contemporary teachers who still, their students are still, the major schools, Jodo Shin and Nichiren, who accepted that there wasn't going to be enlightenment or true practice. And they took up chanting. The Jodo school took up something called other power, in which they threw themselves on the mercy of Amitabha Buddha and prayed to be reborn in heaven until later they could become enlightened. And Dogen said, nope, regardless of the age, we can still, we can be as Buddhas. And I went to this text because we live in an age that some of us might think of as the age of decline. Let me just quickly ask, anybody worried about climate change? Anybody worried about the government? Anybody worried about the children at the border? Anybody worried about the rash of dictators around the world and the overthrow of people who look pretty decent and so forth? So I think that we feel like we're in the age of decline. And so the question is, how do we deal with this and how do we practice in it? So my talk tomorrow morning is going to be more about how we live in the world with it and what we actually do. My talk today, because Sesshin is a time for centering the mind and calming down. It's not a time for thinking about ways and means. And so what I want to talk about is actually Dogen's teaching here. So I want to go through the text piece by piece. And if I, or Dogen, use a word that makes no sense, please stick up your hand right away and I'll slow down and explain it. So he starts with, we vow with all beings. To vow, it's such a big concept that it's hard to find words for. But when you accept a vow, take up a vow, receive a vow, embrace a vow, You're taking up a direction for life. You're taking up something that probably can't be accomplished, and yet you vow to accomplish it. Bernie Glassman Roshi is famous for having vowed to end homelessness. And what that meant was that he spent a considerable amount of his energy and his teaching on homelessness. He led street retreats, and now people have heard about these, but he did the first ones. First, he made people beg for money from their friends, give him a lot of money, and then they went and lived on the street for, a couple weeks, some period of time, with no money. He said he started out giving them $2 a day, but that didn't work, so he had to make them be totally broke. So they had to go into coffee shops and ask for a cup of coffee, and they had to ask for a newspaper if they wanted a newspaper, and so forth. And people who have done this found it liberating. They discovered how generous the world can be. I don't know details. But those are the reports. It's like, oh, and he would usually do this in American cities. I don't know if he did it in cities in other countries. You actually will get fed, but you have to ask. So, vow. In Zen Buddhism, we have the 4 vows to free all beings, actually to carry them across to the other side, to carry them out of suffering, out of this world of suffering. Delusions are inexhaustible. I vow to end delusions. I vow to enter or to master all the Dharma gates, and I vow to realize the Buddha way. So I'm not going to talk about those, but it's like having formally accepted the precepts, I have formally taken those vows. And so they have to be part of my life. So we vow with all beings. He doesn't say all sentient beings. He just says all beings. And so, who would you exclude from all beings? Would you exclude a mosquito? Would you exclude a blade of grass? We're in this with everyone, and I'll say more about that everyone a little later. From this life on throughout countless lives. So you receive this vow, you've got it. It doesn't go away when you die. To hear the true Dharma. To hear the true teaching. So the first part of this vow of Dogen is that understanding that we're together with all beings, we will actually listen to the true Dharma, that upon hearing it, no doubt will arise in us, nor will we lack in faith. So hearing, again, receiving, accepting, that upon meeting it, we shall renounce worldly affairs and maintain the Buddha Dharma. Now, renouncing worldly affairs could mean a lot of things. Dogen was a monk. He had renounced a whole bunch of things. And while I have 16 precepts as a monastic, he had, I don't know, maybe 250 and maybe more than that, because in his time he would have received both the Theravadan precepts, don't sleep on a high bed, don't handle money, don't have sex of any kind, and the Mahayana precepts, which are less tangible and more philosophical. And he changed that system and gave us 16. which are generally in the category of things you can't do. And so we live, these things that we can't quite do guide our lives. So renouncing worldly affairs in our lives does not mean giving up all those things that he gave up. Shunryu Suzuki, a first teacher in America, said that to renounce things doesn't mean to get rid of them. It means to accept that they go away. And renunciation is important in this time, as I know 3 or 4 people who have had to be evacuated from fires, at least. I mean, posted on Facebook. The one in Australia said she's been evacuated twice. Things going away is more real for us now. It was always real, you know. We age, we die, we lose people we love, maybe we lose our jobs, things happen to our health. But we're really in a time when noticing that things go away is, it's in our awareness. It's becoming more and more in the general public awareness, although there is always denial. And one of the human responses to things going away is to deny it. So this vow says we won't deny it. We will first admit the fact that things go away, and then accept. And upon meeting the true Dharma, on hearing it, meeting it, we renounce worldly affairs and maintain the Buddha Dharma. Now, this is interesting because, so here's the place where we have a responsibility. The Buddha Dharma is maintained by us. And it's not just maintained by those who give talks. There's some things in the traditions and in the ceremonies that it was quite a while before I learned what they were for, but they're about maintaining the Buddha Dharma. When we chant a sutra or we chant anything, we dedicate the merit. Do you do that? You have dedications. Okay. So usually the first piece of the dedication is that we dedicate it to the Buddha and the ancestors. Yes? And then whoever else you want to. You can have short, like just kind of everybody, and you can be very specific. And then somebody told me that by starting with the Buddha and the ancestors, you multiplied the effect of, that was Reb Anderson who said that, I think. You multiplied the effect of the dedication to all the rest of the people you're doing. The lineage chart gives us another piece of it. How many people have rakasus?
Very few. We don't.
Not
really
mostly. I
practice
thought you
around
didn't
here.
do that. So, right. Okay. So, I have some little pieces of paper that were given to me when I did the formal receiving of the precepts, and they have a lineage chart on them. And for the last 2, when I became a priest, I had to draw this chart myself. And up at the top you have Buddha, and then you have a string of his disciples, and then there's a split. There are 2 different schools, and then it comes back together, and then it goes on down. And, you know, here are all these famous Zen masters or famous Buddhist teachers. And then you come on down, and then they put your name at the bottom of it. So that's one thing. It's like, what am I doing in this crowd? But the other thing is, there's a red line called the blood vein that goes from, you know, it goes through all these people. And then it gets down to you. So you have this feeling, oh, I am the recipient of this incredible energy, this teaching. And then the line goes back up to Buddha. I'm giving back to Buddha. So we dedicate the merit, we dedicate the energy that we've raised by chanting to the Buddha. And there's a way in which our practice goes back through time to support the Buddha himself and to support that whole lineage. It's not a one-way thing. It's like, whoa. We create the Buddha way. We sustain it by sitting on the cushion, by chanting, by whatever vows we make, by gathering as Sangha, by whatever actions we take with the thought of Sangha, of teaching, of giving. We make this all happen just as much as anybody else makes it happen, or as any of those famous people in the past made it happen. And to me, that is really important. And so, maintaining the Buddha Dharma, and that in doing so, the great earth and all living beings together will attain the Buddha way. So, attain can mean touch. Sometimes this word is translated realize. We make the Buddha way real. And we're talking about the great earth and all living beings. Now, I don't know who Dogen included when he said living beings, but I'm pretty sure he meant all living beings. There is a habit in this culture to think that sentient beings are humans, or maybe sentient beings include animals. We would rather not think that sentient beings includes cockroaches, but it probably does. And so we have this relationship, and worms, and bugs, and fungi, and trees. I mean, there's study now of the communications among trees and the way the mycelial fungal networks help them communicate, and they will send nutrients to support one that's sick or dying. They will send nutrients to support somebody who's stressed by, fire, drought, poor soils, too many people walking on the roots. So it's like you see the community of life and you see it in plants. I personally think that all living beings in the great earth also includes minerals, water, air, rocks, soil. I think that everything in this physical universe is included in that. I have met one other Buddhist who agreed with me, but I can't support that yet based on the text. So I get more support from science than I do from the text. But it'll probably turn up. And she and I are both looking at it now. So, so the great earth and all living beings together will attain the Buddha way. It's like, the big difference with the Mahayana, which includes Zen, the great way, is that everybody and everything together attains the way. There's no sense, there's no personal enlightenment. It's all or nothing. Now this again could be kind of intimidated when you look at the people around you. Probably not this group of people, although maybe you've got family at home that are challenging, but so then we have, although our past evil karma has greatly accumulated, indeed being the cause and conditions of obstacles in practicing the way. So let me stop there. Karma, any action taken with intention creates karma. It can be good karma, it can be bad karma. I'm not sure if it can be neutral karma. But it's like you're setting a ball rolling, and it'll keep rolling. And eventually something will happen. Or they say you're planting a seed, and eventually that seed will bring forth fruit. And the fruit that it brings forth is in accordance with the action and intention that started it. So as long as we think that we're separate beings who can do things, we're making karma. Now, I just said that we all are doing something and that we're supporting and maintaining the Buddha way. So I probably should clarify how I can say these two things at once. We live our lives as if we were separate individual beings. And we can't help that. You wouldn't eat, you know? You wouldn't take care of yourself if you didn't have that quality of separateness in you. And yet, it's kind of a play. And so the reality of non-duality is there. And then the surface in which, I mean, nobody can eat for me. Nobody can sleep for me. We have to do it ourselves. Those two things are like two sides of the same coin. But a lot of people, again, the common understanding, it only has half of it. It only has the I'm separate. And the emphasis on separateness has been getting stronger, I think, in that do it yourself, toughen up. Okay, I won't say more about that. Although our past evil karma has greatly accumulated, he's not worried about our positive karma. The only thing that positive karma does is it keeps you feeling like you're real in the future. You feel like you're a good person. Whereas if you have your evil karma, you feel like you're real, and it brings forth bad fruit. We don't mind the good fruit so much. May all Buddhas, being the cause and condition of obstacles in practicing the way. So, evil karma. Uchiyama Roshi had this interesting expression. He's my Dharma grandfather. Interesting expression, frozen emotion thoughts. So, when bad things happen to us, we might get resentful and cling to it. We might develop opinions about how things are and believe that they're true, and defend them really hard. We might identify people as enemies that have to be stopped. I am very susceptible to this myself. And we might make all kinds of excuses, and all of these things are interferences in our practice of the way. I feel like I just made a confession because I'm thinking, I can barely talk about this, I'm so bad. May all Buddhas and ancestors who have attained the Buddha way be compassionate to us and free us from karmic effects, allowing us to practice the way without hindrance. May they share with us their compassion, which fills the boundless universe with the virtue of their enlightenment and teachings. We're asking them for compassion. He's saying, no, he's asking twice, may they be compassionate to us. He's saying their compassion fills the boundless universe with the virtue of their enlightenment and teachings. Virtue means strength. That's its basic. It's come to mean goodness. but the root meaning from the Latin is power. And so the power of their enlightenment and teachings, and the goodness of their enlightenment and teachings. And we're talking about Buddhas and ancestors who actually do get that part where we're not separate from each other. We're asking them to take that power and support us and help us get through these delusions that we have and these habits that we have, frozen emotion, thoughts, habits. We're asking for support. And he's saying the universe is boundless and it's full of good things. So I want to offer, just in terms of sitting, think of sitting in the boundless universe with the compassion of the Buddhas and ancestors. Now there's also the compassion of the flowers, the birds, the cushion, the other people in the room, the other people outside of the room. There's lots of compassion and support coming towards us in all ways, in all times. And so my first invitation for this retreat is to think that this is your reality. Not just that they are supporting people, but they're supporting you. There are a number of stories, come from Suzuki Roshi a lot, of somebody who is sitting there and Suzuki is saying, now you are all Buddhas. And this person is going, oh, everybody but me in here is a Buddha. Everybody but me in here is a recipient of compassion, but I'm so bad. So let's try not to do that. Try to think, oh, I'm surrounded by compassion. I am supported. It's coming directly to me. Sit in that world. And then we have, it's like promises. Buddhas and ancestors of old were as we in the future shall be Buddhas and ancestors. Revering Buddhas and ancestors, we are one Buddha and one ancestor. Awakening Bodhi mind, we are one Bodhi mind. So here he's coming right out and saying that Mapo stuff, forget it. Doesn't matter what the age is like. His age was pretty difficult. They were fighting clans and stuff. And he said, still, we can be like the Buddhas and ancestors. And, oh, there it is. I'm jumping ahead. Before Buddhas were enlightened, they were the same as we. Now, if that's not encouraging, I don't know what is encouraging. Because they extend their compassion to us freely and without limit, we are able to attain Buddhahood and let go of the attainment. Letting go of it is pretty important. You know, if you go, okay, I'm enlightened, trouble, because you've still got an I. So you have to let go of it. And you have to just let the world pour its juice through you and live through you. And that's what he's proposing. We let go of the attainment. Therefore, the Chan Master Lungya said, those who are not enlightened will now be enlightened. In this life, save the body, which is the fruit of many lives. I've never quite understood that, but it seems to me that it kind of gives some space for supporting our bodies and for rescuing flood victims and, all of that stuff. Before Buddhas were enlightened, they were the same as we. Enlightened people of today are exactly as those of old. So, it's like, we don't care what they say. You can be enlightened. Enlightened, what does that mean? Okay, basically 3 meanings, and I understand 2 of them fairly well. One of them, there are 3 translations in, I have not been studying my words lately. So one of them means something like cultivation. One of them means awakening. And we use that word. We know waking up from the dream. Waking up from that miserable thought that I am not good enough, or that I am good all by myself. Either of those is a miserable dream. And the third one is verification, or proof. And the character for it has a picture of somebody getting up on the witness stand and testifying. The old character for it. And so my teacher translates it verification. Enlightenment is proof when you actually see it. We actually can see the reality of things. There's a lot of stuff about what we can do or what we can't do, or what we have to live a million lifetimes to do. And Dogen is saying, no, right here, we can do it. And then he invents another Buddha. There are lots of names of Buddha, but he invents practice Buddha. And practice Buddha is whenever we practice. Whenever we sit down on the cushion, whenever we do actions that are practice. Practice Buddha is right there. So, it's hardly bearable. I am remembering a quotation from Marianne Williamson, who said, "It's our light, not our darkness, that frightens us the most." Who are we to think that we can be great? Because I didn't memorize that and I didn't bring it with me. Who are we to think that we are not great? How dare we think that we are less than Buddha? Dogen said somewhere else, trust the way and trust that you are in the way. Trusting the way is trust that the compassion of all those ancestors is coming forward and supporting you. Trust that you are in the way means, no, actually, I'm not an exception. It's supporting me. Quietly explore the farthest reaches of these causes and conditions, as this practice is the exact transmission of a verified Buddha. So first I thought, oh, this is something to do on the cushion. Explore, how far does this go? These causes and conditions, this compassion, this releasing of karmic hindrances. And then I thought, oh, what if we do that out in our lives as we walk around? Just how far can our lives go, given that we are supported in this way? Confessing and repenting in this way one never fails to receive help from all Buddhas and ancestors. So the first time I heard them say repentance in a Zen ceremony, I almost ran away and never came back. Because I was raised in an evangelical church. So I have managed to reclaim these words. So confess means to talk about things. It means to talk about things that you might have thought were shameful. You might have thought they were too intimate to tell anybody. They might have been embarrassing. They might have been secret. It's like if you have a cut that gets sealed over and gets infected, you have to rip off the scar or puncture it in some way in order to allow it to heal. That's confession. We just have to, something that sometimes we have to do and it helps us. Repenting means turn back. And my opinion of turning back means coming home. It means coming back to our home among the other animals, among the other beings of the earth, coming home to be made of earth, part of the ground. This body is made of, I tried to look up the percentages, so is it half water? Is it 80% water? It's a lot water. But but the other thing is, it's either 50 or 80%, the other one, beings other than ourselves. There's bacteria. We call them good and bad, but they're in there. There's molds and funguses and all kinds of little critters inside of us. And I would love to say the numbers because they're so dazzling, but I'm not going to make them up. This body, it's like, so I think that I'm in charge of this body, even though those other critters decide sometimes I should be sick, and I don't like it. And it's also made up of all the substances, like the air that I breathe. And I'm afraid I think a lot about the quality of air I'm breathing and the quality of water I'm drinking and the quality of food. I prefer not to have chemicals, and I completely avoid some things. But all of those sentient and non-sentient beings and pieces of matter are me. That's what I am. I'm just like, oh. So just allowing myself to be on the earth. Okay. Oh, no, I don't have time. All right.
How much time would you like, Shodo?
All right, that's true.
It's your day.
Okay. All right, so the Mary Oliver poem, Wild Geese. You do not have to be good. You do not have to walk on your knees for 100 miles through the desert repenting. Now, I'm sure by repenting she meant feeling bad. You only have to let the soft animal of your body love what it loves. Tell me about despair, yours, and I will tell you mine. Meanwhile, the world goes on. Meanwhile, the sun and the clear pebbles of the rain are moving across the landscapes, over the prairies and the deep trees, the mountains and the rivers. Meanwhile, the wild geese, high in the clean blue air, are heading home again. Whoever you are, no matter how lonely, the world offers itself to your imagination, calls to you like the wild geese, harsh and exciting, over and over announcing your place in the family of things. By revealing and disclosing our lack of faith and practice before the Buddha, we melt away the root of transgressions by the power of our repentance. This is the pure and simple color of true faith, of the true mind of faith, of the true body of faith. So we don't have to claim to be great. We can be as petty and miserable as we actually are, and we're still great. We are still Buddha. And by being willing to come home again and again and again, that's how we move. What is it? It's not, we don't destroy the miserableness. It's like we move into being Buddha, being magnificent, being free, having the power to create our own lives anyway. That's not right. I don't know what we have the power to create, but we're moving into a creative space as well as a receptive space. And dropping away the root of transgressions, dropping away the frozen emotion thoughts, and coming into a world and a life that belongs, and a world that welcomes and supports us. That's what I wanted to say. Questions? Think questions first and then comments also. Oops, sorry.
On
Yeah.
So is that what Dogen is meaning when he says true Dharma? Is the nature of that experience that is knowing you are Buddha and knowing you are fallible and broken, and yet somehow you are part of this vast, mysterious, wonderful universe. Is that the true Dharma that he's talking about?
I hesitate to speak for Dogen, although I've just been doing it. I want to say what you just said is a beautiful expression of true Dharma. That's for me.
For me, it would be a question, is this, I know it, in my original faith, confessing was pretty big. Is there such a thing in Zen also, where one monk confesses to another?
There's a precept ceremony. It's usually called the full moon ceremony or the Ryaku Fusatsu. And what's funny, in the early Buddhist Sangha, they actually did this. They read off the 250 some precepts, and people would have to say, oh, I broke that one. And then there were penalties. There were, I think, 7 of them, for which the penalty was expulsion from the Sangha. Killing a human being. Various, really big ones. And then way at the bottom end, there's a whole string of them in which the penalty is confessing it. That would probably include things like sleeping on a high bed. I mean, there's some really trivial things, and I've actually been taught the stories behind a lot of them. And then in the middle, I never learned all the penalties. So they did that, and so they would confess in front of however many monks were and nuns were in the community. What we have now is very formal, and so we chant, we chant the precepts, we chant the vows, we chant the names of Buddha, 7 names of Buddha 3 times. I could still produce it for you. And, and the refuges, which is done by a solo, and it's incredibly beautiful. But people do not speak of their individual things. So it's become a ceremony. And then what my teacher did was he took that ceremony, and as over the years, it's become simpler and simpler. So first we just took it, except then at the end, instead of just, chanting the precepts and then quitting, he would give a short talk, which included reading the precepts, and then we would go around the circle, because we've always been a small group, and everybody had to say, or pass, but we say what they were working with at this time. And so you would refer to one of the precepts, and you would speak briefly or a little longer about it. And it took us a while to get used to doing that, because not only Japan is like, we don't talk much, but Americans who come to Shodo Zen tend to be like that too. But by the time I left my training there, it was a sweet time. And of course, it made you think about the precepts and which one is being difficult for you right now. I remember a time when I showed up at that ceremony and I said the thing I was thinking about. And I said, no, wait. I have to confess, there were like hundreds of ants in my bed and I killed them all. I was like, because it was like, I can't stand having ants in my bed. No. But yeah, it's funny because it's not a common practice, and it's a really good practice. It's beneficial, and we should do it more. Hmm. Okay. Mhm. Okay. One more minute, and so I said questions first, but comments are also fine.
I think I particularly like the idea that we are intrinsically Buddhas. Because that's not what I started out with in my Lutheran upbringing.
Right.
And so it changes entirely the way I look at myself.
Yeah.
I remember talking to my mother and saying, no, it's a loving God, not a punitive God. So, anyway, I love that part.
Yeah, thank you. I think we might have come from the same church. But I'm thinking that the one good thing in all that original sin stuff was I was told that we should believe that God loved us so much that even if we were the only one, Jesus still would have died on the cross for us. It was like, I could never believe it. It's like, what? But yeah, it's hugely different, and there are other options in that religion and in that tradition, but you know, that doesn't mean you get those options. Okay. So I think we have walking now.
So walking and
Yes.
then we'll do sitting and get back on schedule at the end of that sitting
Oh,
period.
what time is it?
We're about 5
16.
minutes over, that's all.
Oh, that's
So
not
we'll
bad.
finish at 3:10. To the next sitting, right?
Yeah, so we have
10
walking
minutes
in
of
here,
walking, and then
10
we'll
minutes
sit.
of walking,
And then you
during which, let me say something about outdoor walking, because I think I'll be joining you, but I think I want to suggest that people just go individually, which is something they do in the Vipassana tradition, and just find a place out there and walk back and forth and totally enjoy your body, feel the support of the ground, feel the support of your muscles, the air, everything. And let it embrace you. And then somebody will have to, don't go so far away that you can't hear a bell, because I
There's a
think,
mock talk, I'll get the mock talk out. to
okay,
people.
will you still be here for that?
No, but Charlie
But,
will.
yeah, okay. So, okay. So, walking now, and I'm going to go and get ready for private interview. And I think there's at least one name on the list. So. Oh, I'm sorry. So I'm going to get ready for private interviews, and I don't know how many names are on the list. But whenever the list expires, then I'll come back.
And the list is in.
The list is out there, yeah. And so if you want to sign up, this walking period is a good time to do that.
Can I ask for a schedule clarification?
Yes.
So we're doing 10 minutes of walking now, then 30 minutes of sitting, and then an hour of walking?
Well,
It'll be 10 minutes of sitting, 45 minutes of sitting,
Right.
10 minutes of walking, there'll be 40 minutes of sitting, and then, an hour of outdoor walking to be ready for dinner at 4:50. Everybody clear about this, the private interviews? Any questions or anything like that? No? Good.
No? Okay.
All right.
All right.
So if you put your cushions back in place, and we will, when everybody's settled, I'll use the wooden placards to show them the walking.
first time, well, actually not while I had another interview once on a retreat, which was really very, very helpful for me. But obviously, I've never been in one of yours, so it's probably, I don't quite know where to start. But I wanted to ask you, from your experience as a, I believe, weren't you also almost like a priest or something for dying people in a hospice or something? I don't remember that.
No,
No, okay.
I was not. I was like a chaplain or something.
Chaplain. Yes.
Yeah,
Mhm.
right. No, it seems that chaplaincy is a entirely different credential and training program.
Okay.
So I was interested, but I did not do that.
No, because I wanted to ask, because I come to sitting maybe 2 or 3 years ago, but I'm also have a whole bunch of other, before that, lots of karmic things going on, I'm in recovery for 12 years now, but I'm every year I'm struck with seasonal affective disorder. I get really down in the fall. This year it was particularly heavy. I was doing really great. I was participating. I had a good run, and then it was like someone pulled the plug on all of that, and then I became really depressed, really struggling. I had to see my psychiatrist again. I'm on medication again. It seems to be always something that I have to just, like you said, we have to accept, or I have to accept what's given to me, But it's a lot better now, and in the spring I typically, come out from under the rocks again. So I'm not in a bad spot right now. Thanks God. But just wanted to ask you, from your experience, I mean, is meditation kind of neutral in that regard, or would you think it helps, or I don't know?
That's with
It's
depression.
a loaded question.
Right. I know a lot about depression, but I don't know much for other people. But I have things I usually say. So let me just ask this one. Did they tell you about the lights? By using a
Yes.
light?
Yeah,
Do you
yeah.
use one?
I have one at home. I don't use it as much as I really should. And you, actually, the second person who was pointing that out. So I need to. I'm going to go back to that.
Okay, so let me tell you, at a time when it was a very hard time, and I made myself a light box
Oh, yeah.
from stuff I could get at, you don't know Menards. Anyway, at the hardware store. And I put it right next to my bed.
Mm-hmm. Oh.
So that if I couldn't get out of bed, I could usually get myself to bring my hand out from under the covers and turn the light on. And then I would just kind of peek. Well, some months later, I don't know how many months it was before I gave the lights away.
Good. Yeah. Yeah.
But you might want to keep them for several years. you might just want to keep them for that winter problem.
Yeah. It's recurring. Yeah. No, that's good
Yeah.
advice.
Yeah, right. They don't do you any good if you don't use them. So, does meditation help? I think so.
Okay.
So there are a lot of kinds of depression, and I don't know yours.
Yeah.
But one of the things that depression is, in my impression, is a lot of voices in your head saying really bad things about how awful you are.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that is something that doing meditation can help with.
Okay.
Now, the only thing is that if badly depressed, you could sit on the cushion for hours telling yourself bad things, and that would not help.
Right.
In which case, you need to stick closer to the instructions. what instructions do you have for
Yeah,
sitting?
I mean, I'm seeing a good psychiatrist. I mean, she helps me with. I see her roughly every 6 weeks or so.
Wow, that's a lot.
Well, she's pretty expensive. I mean, it's amazing, but yeah, I mean, it's mostly talking about how can we improve, how is the medication working, or what's going on with your wife, what's going on with the jobs. You know, it's always the same structure anyway. She goes
Right.
through the checklist. You know.
Yeah. So what I want to know is what instructions you have for sitting meditation.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if I have any. I mean, if anything, I'm trying to.
Well, what do you do?
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to follow the concentration practice. So I'm concentrate on my breathing for the most part. I mean, in the beginning, I saw a lot of colors and was all in that stuff, but that has kind of passed. I mean, I'm no more trying to focus on my breathing.
And it's 3 years, so yeah. So what often happens is you start off with a rush of, this is great,
Yeah.
and then it's like you hit yourself, you know, you hit the serious stuff,
Right.
and then it starts to be kind of miserable. A lot of people quit during that period.
Right.
So we'll just say you're in that period. What's the best thing I know? So in what way do you follow your breath?
Well, I mean, I'm basically just counting, you know, 1, 2, in, out, 1, 2, trying to get to 10, then maybe 20, and
Okay.
as long as I
That one, yeah.
sustain it.
Do you notice anything besides the counting?
Well, and I'm trying to think, I mean, I always do the noting too, because inadvertently I come back to my thinking sooner or later, then I try to get back to the breathing.
Okay. So let's try something different, only because it's like there are so many different ways to do it,
Yeah.
but at the beginning you don't want to know 6 ways. You just want one that works.
Right.
So let's try a different one. So take a breath in and tell me how far down it goes in your body.
I mean, I typically try to get to
Down
my
there?
yeah,
Okay.
bone,
Okay.
somewhere fairly, I mean, I
Yeah.
don't know how deep that is.
So I want to, and what's your posture when you're sitting?
Yeah, it's probably, I have a tendency to, since I can no longer sit on the cushion, unfortunately, I'm
Okay.
sitting in a chair.
Okay.
So I'm trying to be somewhat upright and
Yeah.
then,
Upright. Yeah, it doesn't look too bad. You want your your feet on the floor. If you want, you could throw a little cushion in there
okay,
to,
that's a good idea.
you know, it's like, or a little cushion under your sit bones.
Yeah, I typically have that.
you
Or
do
would
that,
you
yeah.
recommend maybe just not even to lean?
Well, not leaning
Mm.
is recommended,
Okay,
but if, like, sometimes you're really tired or something,
right.
and so if you're going to lean, put something in here so that instead of going like this, you're going like this.
Oh, okay, so that you, yeah.
So that, yeah, so you still have your
Upright.
room for your organs and room for your lungs, everything.
That's good.
Okay, so make that little change, and then, so in following the breath, so I've never done counting myself. I hated it. I couldn't, you know, I could get to 1 mostly, so I kind of gave it up. But and if I'd been in a school where that's what they were doing, I probably would have learned it. But I had just following.
Also, I'm following my breath.
Following your breath, and so physical sensations are magic. So, and for me, because my diaphragm's a little tight, it would be really important to feel this last part.
Okay.
Some people just notice it, like the sensation of the air on the nostrils.
Yeah.
And let's say, spend one period doing this one, and spend one period doing that one.
Focusing on the nose, okay.
And then choose whichever one you think worked better. You know, it's pretty simple. Which one helped you be calmer?
Good, okay.
And do that.
I'm gonna do that.
I know, it's so, let me see, what else? It's like, I wonder why you're seeing a psychiatrist and not a counselor.
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, it's really not talk therapy in that regard. It's more
Yeah.
like, you know, get your medication.
Medication management.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's really
right.
what she's doing. Maybe
Yeah.
I should.
And she's managing it pretty intensively. And if you have health insurance, you should, I mean, anyway, counselors are cheaper than psychiatrists.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
I should look into that maybe too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you might,
Yeah.
you might consider that, because I'm like, she's asking you about
Same
various
thing.
things in your life.
Yeah.
Well, if there are difficulties, and next time you see her, you could ask if she thought that was not a good idea.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, maybe you're already doing everything right and you're depressed anyway. But it's only in the winter.
Oh yeah, it's always.
Yeah.
In the summer, I'm
Yeah.
typically
Okay.
in a good place.
Okay. So I won't give any advice about nutrition or stuff, which is, it's not my job here, but
Oh no, I mean
Yeah.
I'm always
Yeah.
open, really. I mean I know that you have a pretty good, I mean, grounding in the land and your and,
yeah.
and the sustainability. I mean I admire that, frankly.
Mhm.
So I would be, if you have some nutritional, for instance,
How do
I'm-
you, yeah. So it's like, how do you spend your days? You probably have a job.
I have a job. It's your typical 40 to 50 hours. I get up.
Indoors, moving, not moving, desk job.
It's a more
physical
or less
job?
desk job. Yeah, I'm an
Uh-huh.
architect. I sit, I sit a
Oh,
lot on the
nice.
computer, and well,
Yeah.
it sounds
Oh.
glorious, but it really
But it's a lot on the computer.
yes.
Okay. Do you spend more time on the computer in the winter than in the summer?
It's probably the same, I would say.
Okay. I'm thinking in the summer you might be more likely to like be going out to sites or something.
Yes, that's true. I
Okay.
go out of the building at lunch, and I go for walks. You know,
Okay.
that's
So
true.
get yourself outdoors. Sunlight is essential.
Right.
And sunlight here and here and in your eyes,
Mm-hmm.
you know. I mean, it's what the light box is substituting for. Get
Exactly.
more daylight.
Good.
So, okay. So do you have a healthy diet or a kind of messed up diet? Or?
Probably more messed up than healthy, but I'm trying.
Okay.
Lately to make.
Right.
At least I'm not totally
No,
overweight
right,
yet,
yeah.
but I'm on the way, I think.
Okay.
I can
And so
easily.
you're in recovery. Okay. So let me say three things that I know that are fairly universal. And one of them is enough protein,
Mm-hmm.
but not, and vegetables, green vegetables. And the other one is not too much of sugar and chemicals. Yeah, see, sugar, so I don't eat refined sugar at all. And the reason is I know how to make myself depressed, and I've done it many times. And it's like, it's not worth it.
Binging.
So, well,
I would.
the worst one was a Hershey, one of these little Hershey miniatures.
Mhm.
And I woke up at 2 a.m. going, my life is worthless. I should kill myself, but I can't. I have kids.
After
I'm not
Hershey-
kidding.
after
A
Hershey.
little tiny, yeah.
Oh my
I did this.
God.
I was in monastic training, and I thought I was feeling great. I thought it would be safe.
Mm.
Now I think that I'm safer than that now.
Wow.
However,
Yeah.
that's the power of sugar. So yeah.
I'm particularly bad in that one. I mean, it's not unusual. I
Mhm.
come home, my wife is gone. She
Mhm.
works in the evenings. I feel depressed, lonely, sorry for
Mhm.
myself. And the next thing, I eat a whole chocolate bar. You know,
Right,
The whole
yeah.
thing.
Yeah. Right. Okay.
And then I can't sleep.
Right. Yeah. The chocolate will keep you awake, but it's the sugar that makes you depressed. I make sugar with maple syrup stuff now.
You make your own?
I make my own. Yeah, I have to.
Yeah.
Except Lily's chocolate chips. Which you might find at Savananda, but not somewhere else. So,
Good. Okay. Well,
so anyway, yeah. But, well, loneliness. Yeah, it's like chocolate is a substitute for love, helps with the loneliness. You should see a therapist. Because there's only so much you can do with the food thing. It's like, come on. But yeah,
Okay.
so more sunlight and hopefully the,
And I will practice what you
yeah.
tell me about the breathing. That's a good idea. I need to switch it up a little bit.
Yeah. And then, I mean, you can ask one of the senior people here
Sure.
if that doesn't help you.
Sure.
You can get advice.
Yeah, I know. I need to talk, open up a little bit more and confess a little bit. Thank you so much.
You're very
Sure,
welcome.
That was great. Thank you.
Okay.
I call the next
Yes, please.
lady. I think it's April. Thank you.
April.
Hi, April. Thank you.
I'm brand new to Buddhism. Yeah, I started, I've always meditated and didn't realize that's what I was doing.
Huh.
And I started coming here in August and then went to silent retreat for 3 days with Lisa Ernst through this Sangha. And I was like, this is where I belong. It all made sense. Yeah, it's very comforting. And instead of seeing suffering, kind of as the enemy, instead looking at it as this great teacher. And that has just provided, and I'm a therapist for a living, and that has just, made me go like this.
Oh, yes. Therapists particularly need to do this,
Yes.
or whatever equivalence there might be.
Agreed. I did, so I wanted to share that with you, and then I did want to ask, unfortunately, at the beginning of November, I was diagnosed with breast cancer.
Beginning of November, 2 months ago.
Mm-hmm.
And what more would you like to tell me about that?
So I have surgery on this Wednesday for a lumpectomy and then a reduction of both breasts for symmetry, and quite honestly, having large breasts is kind of nice.
It's all right. Okay, so it was caught early.
Yeah, I am a PSA for self-exams because I found it, and it still doesn't even show on the mammogram. Even though they know where it is, I can feel it. I found it in October, and for a day I was like, I don't really think I felt anything. So the next night I said to my wife, I think there's something there. She confirmed, and then it just kind of all.
And it was not benign when they checked it.
It was not benign. And the process of getting to the surgery date just been an emotional roller coaster. I almost feel comfortable saying I think the surgery and the recovery is going to be much easier than getting there. Appointments and multiple biopsies, and appointments and etc.
Just, you've been back and forth to the doctor a lot, and multiple biopsies.
Multiple biopsies, genetic testing because I'm an Ashkenazi Jew.
Oh, okay, right.
So a good 6 weeks of not knowing if I would need a bilateral mastectomy or not.
That's
Yeah.
horrendous. I'm so glad that you got the easy one.
Me too. Yes. And I have wonderful support, and quite honestly, I think I'm dealing with it pretty well and crying when I need to, etc. What I wanted to ask is, it might just be doing what I'm doing, right? Meditating and trying not to judge what I feel and letting things come through and try not to kind of latch onto negative or positive feelings. But in dealing with a diagnosis like this, do you have kind of any suggestions or a way that I can embrace Buddhism or find additional comfort?
So this has not happened to me.
Well, I'm
So
glad for
I
you.
don't, right, yes. So I just want to say there's something that I don't have. Keep up your practice. Do you have a regular sitting practice?
I do.
Does your wife sit with you?
She does not.
Okay.
Um,
Does she support you sitting?
She does. We took the walk-in closet and converted it into.
Very good.
Yeah, so she
Yes.
is very supportive, and I paint. So I have a lot of paintings of mine in there that are very soothing, and so we do have a nice space. Yeah,
Yeah.
she doesn't sit with me, but she's very
Right.
supportive.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So I have to ask if there are chemicals in the paints you paint with. But that's part of the. I mean, it's sort of in the medical world. Is there something causing this? Because if there is, you have to get rid of that.
Right. Well, I use acrylic paint, which is water-based.
Should be safe.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay.
And I just started painting in May.
Oh, okay. So that's not it.
No, it's not. And I've been a vegetarian for 30 years. I have a brown belt in Taekwondo. I've done half marathons. I've done
Okay. All the good health
10
stuff.
triathlons until my knees decided that I couldn't. And it was the Taekwondo, I'm sure. All the kicking.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm just living in this environment.
Yeah. Right.
There's
Good environment. So there is a book by Stephen Levine called Healing into Life and Death. He did a lot of work with people who were, they had cancer, they had all kinds of illnesses. I mean, he invited it and people came. And so I suggest getting that book.
okay.
Do you do alternative medicine at all?
No,
Okay.
yeah. But actually, and this might be a far bigger question,
Yeah.
but I completely agree with you when you were talking about, everything that we're made up of. And cancer is I will be removing and killing
Mm-hmm.
it.
Yeah.
Which I don't think a lot of people understand that that's a little bit of a, I mean, of course I don't want
It's
cancer.
an issue. Right. Right. Yes. Yes. So I've dealt with this with invasive plants and animals at the farm.
Mm.
But the consequences are smaller. So I believe that a cancer cell is a cell out of balance.
It's a
It is,
mutation.
yeah,
Mhm.
it has lost its limiting things,
Mm-hmm.
and so you have to set limits on it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so do you have the right to set limits on a member of the community
Mm-hmm.
that is trying to be the only member of the community?
Being new to Buddhism.
Yeah, right.
I know right and wrong isn't necessarily a good question to ask, but is it wrong to view limiting this
Mhm.
member who's trying to overtake things? If I limit it, I believe then that expands my ability to practice Buddhism and share it with others. And there's so much comfort for me in generosity before I found Buddhism, and my own suffering and my own pain, I think allows me to be a good therapist and to
Yeah.
sit with people.
Yeah.
And so, is justification okay? I guess is my question.
You know, so what I think, it's like this is easy for me because it's inside of your own body.
Mm-hmm.
If you were walking down the street and you saw a big kid beating up a bunch of little kids, what would you do?
I would stop them.
Okay, that's my answer.
I like that answer. I like that answer.
Yeah.
I
mean, you probably wouldn't shoot them, but if they were
No.
killing the other kids, and the only option,
my interventions would be dependent upon, like, intervening wouldn't be a problem,
Mm-hmm.
but then the level of intervention, like you
Mhm.
just said, would be related to the level of damage and threat.
Right, yeah, how much is
Right.
necessary, how much is worth it, and all that stuff. And you would probably decide it intuitively.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anybody inside of you who thinks you're not worth saving?
Quite the opposite.
Okay.
There's my answer, right?
Yeah, there you go.
And I think that's a great question, because also, always, this is why Buddhism makes so much sense to me, because that has always, people don't talk about that. It's not a normal dinner conversation, so to speak.
Yeah.
And it was actually my therapist who, back at the beginning of the year of 2019, I was talking to her, and I said, I don't spend a lot of time with like-minded people.
Ooh.
And she said, I hear a yet in that. I thought you didn't hear a yet in that, but that's a good message.
That's a good message.
And it
Therapist.
here.
Mm-hmm. So here you are.
So here I am. I think being new also, I struggle with even though I say I don't want to do things right, because, but how do you balance the not viewing things as right or wrong, because even in trying to do that, you're viewing them.
Well, right, yeah. It's like, there's the trick. It's like, oh, that was dualistic. Stop it. I was bad.
You're a therapist by training,
Yes,
also,
I am.
aren't you?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And
Are
I
you-
have a part-time therapy practice now.
Are you a psychologist or a social worker?
Social worker.
You have an
LICSW is what we have in Minnesota.
Okay,
That's
may
what you
I
have?
ask- Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I have an LCSW here.
Yeah, same thing.
So where did you get your MSW?
University of Minnesota.
Okay.
I went to the local cheap school.
I did that for undergrad. I grew up in New York. There's a SUNY system, State
Oh, yes,
University
right.
of New York.
Yes, yes.
But then for graduate school, I went to WashU in St. Louis.
Oh, really?
Yes,
Okay.
and that's where I met my wife. So that's the
That's
best
nice.
decision. Yes.
Yeah, obviously a good decision.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm very biased towards social workers.
Mm-hmm. Well, someone told me that I would prefer social work because it was holistic, and psychologists are like, and so, so I did that.
Well, I kind of look at the difference between social work and psychology is, in a way, like if you wanted to build a community, a psychologist would look for a structure, would find a structure, would then, what do I need to put in this structure, and then invite people to come. The social worker goes under a tree, says, how can I help you? And then if there comes a point where we need shelter, then we build it together.
Oh, that's lovely. I can't say I've done that, but
I'm sure you have, though.
in some other way, yeah.
And I think that's where Buddhism just started to make sense to me, and through my own healing and kind of saying, wait a minute, there are a lot of other lives in me that have kept me going through abusive upbringing, etc. And I have a 15-year-old and a 17-year-old. And my 15-year-old has been here many, many times. He is far older than you and I.
Okay.
Yes. My 17-year-old, he's newer, but not as new as my wife.
Oh, this is interesting. So you think that way.
I do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do. And I think Buddhism has also allowed me to not let my mind be my own restrictor, if you will, to just kind of, it's very permissive and very safe and very comforting to me, I think.
Yeah. That's the way we like to see Buddhism. It is. It's permissive. There's a point at which you have to like settle down and do it. Retreats are a small opportunity. For some people, just sitting for an hour is such an opportunity.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I very much appreciate you being here, and I appreciate the time to get to sit and talk, because the few things that you said are actually have really resonated.
Good.
Yeah, if you see a bully beating up kids.
Yeah, yeah. It's sort of like we can get very complicated, and some things are simpler than that.
Yes, they are. A therapist years ago had said to me about my own physical health, have you thought of looking at yourself like you do your children when they were very small?
Right, yes.
Would you take your child to the doctor? You didn't take yourself, but would you let your child go through? No. So it's the same kind of
Right, yeah.
thing. And finding the time to practice is, I'm going to have a beautiful opportunity because I'll be out of work for 4 weeks.
4 weeks after the surgery?
Mm-hmm.
Get that book first.
Yes. Stephen
Levine, Levine. He's quite famous.
Okay.
He's probably got tons of stuff on YouTube. But I don't know, you know.
Okay.
But I had that book years ago. I don't know if I still have it or not. And it is the one. First he wrote Who Dies?
Okay.
But Healing into Life and Death is where he addresses people who are struggling with this and that and having to make choices and so forth.
Healing into Life and Death.
Yeah.
I'll have to write that down. In fact, I might tear a piece of the paper off to write that down.
Yeah, I think
that.
Let me see. Are there other papers in my backpack? No, not helpful. Yeah. And you can ask me again.
Okay.
Like at the end of the day or something.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Buddhism is?
Mm-hmm. I was raised Catholic most of my life, and then I wasn't in any religion for most of my 20s, and I meditate every day, but I am looking for more understanding.
Oh, okay. So what do you know so far?
And I don't even know if this is even...
No, that's good.
Okay.
Yeah.
What I know, what I think I know is that there's this inner light within all of us, and Buddhism opens that light more for us to see the power like within ourselves, along with compassion. That may be totally...
It's interesting. It's more Quaker.
Oh.
So, okay, so Buddhism is the Four Noble Truths. Suffering, which doesn't mean horrendous stuff, although it includes it. It means it's like having a stone in your shoe,
Okay.
or your bicycle wheel is like a little crooked. So things are just never quite right. And that's a quality that is like that happens in life. But the second noble truth is there's a cause for this. And, the list of sufferings includes things like being with people you don't like, being away from people you really love, and then other, hunger, sickness, all kinds of stuff.
Those are other examples of suffering?
Those are examples of suffering.
Got it, okay.
It was like anytime you feel like complaining, suffering is going on.
Okay.
Okay, so the second thing is that there's a cause. And to keep it the simplest, the cause is that we want things. So we want things to be different from how they are. And that's like, sometimes we want them to be the way they are. Like, just got a raise, just fell in love, just, have fabulous food and a beautiful day at the beach and that kind of stuff. But having preferences, wanting those things more than we want, say, a rainy day, or so that's a cause of suffering. It's like because we're picky about things.
Picking one over the other?
Yeah,
Okay.
choosing one over the other. There's something missing in there, but I'll come back to it.
Okay.
Okay, so the third noble truth is there's actually a way out. So you don't have to feel bad all the time. Or you don't even have to feel bad. And then the fourth noble truth is the Eightfold Path. And that is, two of them sound the same, right view and right understanding. And then there's, let me see, there's meditation, which is mindfulness and samadhi, calming down. And then there are three that are about how you live. Right speech, right action, right livelihood. And those are things that you can just go, okay, I'm just not going to do that anymore, or I am going to do this, like you make choices about what kind of jobs you look for, rather than the jobs with the most money, the jobs that satisfy your desire to serve, for instance, which you might have, probably. But the right thought, it's like those first two, they're like studying the nature of how things work. So understanding how things work is like the big freedom. So let me go back to desire. So there are three poisons. They're sometimes called greed, hate, and delusion. Sometimes they're called attraction, aversion, and delusion. But so we want things, or we don't want things. Those are kind of two sides of the same coin, and that's the desire I was talking about. And then, but illusion. We think that we are separate. We think that we're individual people. It can get really extreme, like you hear about the self-made man who doesn't understand that somebody else built the roads and somebody else built the library and somebody else built the college he went to and somebody left him a lot of money. And, people who think they made it on themselves, who are like totally out of touch with how they're connected with the world. but for the ordinary human being, there's still every time, like sometimes we'll feel like nobody cares about me, or just there are people I love but they're not here, and that's all about feeling separate. So according to Buddhism, what we really are is we're like so totally connected with everything around us. And I think I talked about that in the talk. And so letting ourselves see, or letting ourselves, well, first we think about it, you know. We go, oh, this is part of me. This is connected with me. I'm part of that. And we start to, anyway, you start to see it more and more. And completely seeing it is what's called enlightenment.
So, I guess like what my understanding was with the inner light being within all of us.
Mm-hmm.
Is that wrong, or is that?
It's not wrong. It's just like, so there are things that get confused, and it sounds like, I mean, the Quakers talk about the inner light all the time, but New Age people often mix up Buddhism and present things that are Buddhist along with things that are not. And so I don't know who you've been reading, but that would how that got mixed in. It's like I don't recognize the language.
Got it.
But what they share is like, you know, it's okay. You are created. You are being created every second, every moment by everything around you. It's called the support of all beings. Whether it feels good or bad, it's still, you know, we are constantly being created. We're created by the past a bit, and we're created by what's around us a lot. And that's just the nature of reality. And according to Buddhism, I think it's the nature of reality.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And
Yeah.
because I listened to, after I kind of separated myself from the Catholic religion,
Yeah.
I really started to get into more like spiritual teachers, not necessarily like a religion.
Right. Yeah.
Like, I don't know if you've heard of Abraham Hicks or Eckhart Tolle.
Eckhart Tolle I recognize.
Eckhart Tolle.
And he's not Buddhist, but we love him. You know, you can read Eckhart Tolle all day long.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I guess I'm looking for that connection, that understanding more of like, why am I here?
Mm-hmm.
Why am I engaging with you right now?
Yeah.
Why am
right.
I in this
Yeah.
building? Why did
you
I
come?
Yeah.
Yeah, right. And so I can give you an answer that's like utterly useless, which is, well, because you've set your foot on the path and now the path is calling you. But do you know who is good? And he's good for beginners, and he doesn't stop being good. His name is Adyashanti. Adyashanti. Yes, podcast. He does. What is it? What does he call it? He does an online radio thing.
Okay.
He writes books. Some of his stuff, some of his talks are available for free download, and some of them for money.
Okay.
But he spent a long time training in Zen, and then he went and became, I think it's Ayurveda. No, wrong word, Advaita.
Okay.
But that doesn't matter. It's like, that's a detail, because his stuff is really, really helpful for starting.
Okay.
And then, you know, you can go to classes and talks that people have here.
Yeah. Okay. Got it. Yeah, because I really, and when you said Quaker, is that like a totally
Friends, Quaker, it's a religion.
Oh.
Society of Friends.
I've never heard of this either.
Where are you from?
I'm a very small town in Pensacola, Florida, but I was raised like very, very conservative.
Oh, very, very totally within. Okay, so, yeah, because it's like the Friends, like they were really big in abolition of slavery back in the 1800s.
Oh, wow.
And they were very extreme then, too, like they all dressed a certain way.
Wow.
So they don't do that anymore, but they're active in anti-war a lot, So, yeah, but the inner light, so they get together and sit quietly, but then if somebody hears something, then they speak. And so they have meetings, and they will, they might be silent all the time, and they might be, like a lot of people might say stuff,
Got it. Okay.
whereas we're just silent.
Got it. Okay, my last question is,
Yeah.
do Buddhists believe in God?
Not as such.
Okay.
In Buddhism, there are 6 realms of existence, and one of them is the God state. And you can be a god. Americans usually think of these psychologically.
Mhm.
So the God state is when everything is going well. And you feel good. And there's another state that's a hell state. But you get to the God state, and it doesn't last forever. And then when you fall out of it, you don't like it so much. So the ideal state, the human state is the ideal one because you can wake up. And then you get out of the cycle of feeling good, feeling bad, feeling desperate, arguing with people. Missing one, but there are all these kind of classic things that people do, and they're described in these 6 states. Except that one of them is human, in which we experience all the others, but we have the possibility of waking up and getting out of that cycle. So, yeah.
I'm going to check him out as Adyashanti.
Adyashanti. Yeah. I need to put paper out there so people can write things down.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for that. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome. And just keep hanging around and asking questions.
I will.